All right, let's address the elephant in the room. For far too long, we've been treating the tools that we use in GIS as a zero-sum game. It's all or nothing. And for me personally, I love to talk about modern GIS, and that's something that's worked really well for me in my career. But that doesn't mean that I think any other approach is less valid. The problem in thinking this way, and that everything needs to be traditional GIS or everything needs to be open source, is it really doesn't leave much room for collaboration or working together. And as we will see, I think it's actually holding up different growth opportunities, even salaries in the field. So in this video, I'm gonna dive in and see how we can dissect and understand this problem a little bit more, and actually see how other industries have tried to move through this problem themselves. And at the end of the video, I'll talk a little bit about what I think we should do differently, with a little help from Ted Lasso, because why not? So first, let's zoom in on the problem. For me, this has been a great debate with others in the geospatial world, and frankly for myself as well. In my opinion, the way we think about GIS, and by we, I mean those in the field, using the tools, teaching them, and the people building the tools as well, is that it needs to be one approach or the other. So what do I mean by this? On one hand, there's a specific path that has existed for years, at least as long as I've been in the field. And that's what we'll call GIS, or traditional GIS. So how do we define this traditional GIS? For me, this is a primarily desktop-based workflow using files from your computer or maybe a server, and then publishing some things online from time to time. In short, it's a lot of point and click. And in this traditional path, there are of course a lot of advantages to it. First of all, there's a very clear path laid out when learning and schools and programs to learn, practice, and then actually get a job using these GIS tools. There are also lots of organizations that you can join where you can collaborate and work with similar people in the field, as well as get lots of certifications to prove you know how to use and implement these tools in a real-world setting. And of course, when I talk about school or academia, that means that there's degrees and courses designed to specifically help you do these things. This is an established and proven path for learning GIS, and it will exist for a long time, probably into the foreseeable future. Yet increasingly, more and more people are starting to take a different path. Maybe we can call this the path less traveled, or as I hear it commonly referred to as open source. And while the term open source does sum up a lot of the different technologies that are used, it doesn't really do it justice to simply call it only open source or just open source tools. Or in short, it kind of implies that you're missing out on something else. By using open source, you are not getting blank. And in many cases, that is true. If you download QGIS or PostGIS to do spatial analysis on your computer, ultimately you're the one that is responsible for making it run and updating it and basically making sure it all goes at the end of the day. So let's take a look at these terms side by side and start to dive in and understand what they mean. Let's take a look at this article from GIS Lounge, which I think does a pretty good job of summing it up right here. So let's take a read of this first paragraph. I have only taken one formal course in GIS. However, I consider myself a confident practitioner of the software and am constantly learning more despite not having access to a costly software license for ArcGIS or similar desktop software. In order to enhance my GIS skills while transitioning from a job in environmental engineering to a career in geospatial web design, I've been taking advantage of these freely available software and resources. And while doing so, I found that advances in the design of open source GIS programs have made acquiring GIS expertise achievable for someone without the cash to plunk down for expensive software and training. And basically, when you take a read of this, you'll clearly start to see that it is one of two paths. There's a clear divide in how we practice GIS. And there's other points to prove this too. If you take a look and search through some different terms like Learn GIS, you can start to see what that looks like on this web result here versus Learn Open Source GIS. If you do the same thing on Amazon for looking for books or training courses on a course website like Udemy, you can clearly start to see that there's two different versions of these worlds here. And the last is in academia, where you can see this pretty starkly. Kurt Menke, he mentioned that Dr. Phil Davis, a colleague of his, conducted a survey several years ago and found that 95% of the GIS curricula in US colleges and universities are based on proprietary GIS software. But on the flip side, I've seen other trends as well. In my recent video on GIS jobs data, we found some different trends that start to stand out from the job market. As you can see here, yes, traditional GIS is definitely still a leader and in demand, But other skills like SQL and Python are really starting to rise to the surface. So if the job market is demanding a more balanced approach, why aren't we doing that in the geospatial world ourselves? And this is exactly why I started to talk about GIS in a different way. For me, I've been using these open tools and languages ever since I left college in 2010. And yes, sometimes I use cloud-hosted services or tools that might have a mix of open source and closed source code, but at the end of the day, the large majority of the work that I do happens in open source tools and languages. The problem for me came down to this. Even though I felt like the work I was doing was the same as geospatial analysis or GIS, it was somehow labeled different as open source and separate from this world of GIS. And like I've said in my previous videos, this approach has worked really well for me. I've been able to perform different tasks that I need to, learn lots of new things, and actually really grow in my career path. For me, it all boiled down to this. Was the work that I was doing fundamentally different than work in GIS?
Wish I could have did it earlier. I don't know if the outcome would have been different.
So why was it viewed as something completely different? This is why I started to talk about a more modern approach to GIS. While the tool set is different and sometimes it can take a different approach, the key to remember is that no single approach is the right one. And when I say modern GIS, this isn't to say this is one way or another, it's left or right. Ultimately, there's room for everyone at the table. And as I've started to explore this topic and talk to others about it, I think there's really two things we have to acknowledge in order to really push and move forward. First is that GIS is changing. This isn't a battle of all or nothing, winner takes all. At the end of the day, it's a mix, it's both. And the data from the job market sort of starts to prove this to us. And the second is GIS is GIS. They're all the same, one isn't better than the other, and it doesn't matter what tools that we're using. There's a lot of different terms being thrown around in terms of what we do and what we practice, everything from spatial data science to location intelligence to spatial analytics to GIS, the list goes on and on. When one way of doing things becomes too omnipresent, it really makes it difficult to share new ideas or try new things. If we're all doing things the same way, how do we expect to advance? And for me personally, I think that too much common thinking really isn't a good thing. I love being challenged and creating new ideas and learning new perspectives on how to do things. And ultimately, that's why I'm here. That's why I do these different things. It's to share ideas that work for me and also learn a lot from the people that I've been talking to. So thank you for everything that you share, because I get just as much out of it as I hope you get back from this. And at the end of the day, I think probably one of the most important things is to remember that everyone doing these things, we're all geographers. We're all trying to solve these different problems. And let's not forget how important these problems are. We're working on issues of food access, climate change, building transportation systems, helping people in communities, improving supply chains, and ultimately everything in geospatial helps make the world just a little bit of a better place. So no matter the tools we're using, we're all geographers, we're all interested in solving problems in this world. And I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing we need to think about. And yes, I promised a Ted Lasso reference, and I actually think this brings it all together pretty nicely. Now, there are spoiler alerts here, so if you haven't seen the third season of Ted Lasso, well, either skip ahead or go hurry up and watch it. So during the season, this new guy comes around, his name is Zava, and he's this amazing football star, and basically he starts scoring all the goals for him. But suddenly, Zava departs, and the team is left to figure out what they should do next. And on a fateful night in Amsterdam, Ted goes to an American-themed restaurant and watches a rerun of a Bulls playoff game in the 90s. He came up with a new plan that, while he thought was original, actually had been done by a team in Amsterdam in the previous years. This is called Total Football, and here is where we can tie this all together. At the end of the day, Total Football is about being selfless. It's about sharing, it's about moving the ball around, and ultimately getting to a shared end goal. In this case, winning a soccer game. What do I mean, and how does that apply to geospatial and GIS? At the end of the day, we're all trying to solve the same problems. We're all trying to get to one end goal. So with the end of this, and to wrap this up, I implore everyone to start to look at different approaches, try and use new techniques and ideas, and frankly, let's not worry so much about the tools that we use to get them done. Let's collaborate and focus on the problems that we're trying to solve, work together as a community, and share and advance these different ideas. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear from them, and I really like hearing some feedback on these different ideas and topics, so please go ahead and share those below. I look forward to checking them out, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.